Welcome to the Motherhood Alliance podcast, the podcast dedicated to empowering moms and families on their health and wellness journey. I'm Brittany Suttner.
And I'm Andrea Rinkus. Together, we're here to explore holistic approaches that go beyond conventional medicine.
Each week, we dive into topics that matter most to you. Everything from nutrition and mental health to alternative therapies and natural living.
And whether you're a new mom navigating the early stages of parenthood or a seasoned pro looking for new ways to support your family's well-being, you're in the right place.
Even better, all of our guests are local small business owners who you can actually talk to and work with. You can learn more about today's guest and connect with hundreds of other health and wellness professionals through our informative and easy-to-use directory at motherhoodalliance.com.
Before we get started, keep in mind that this podcast is for informational and educational purposes only and is not a substitute for personal healthcare advice. Please consult your healthcare provider before making any changes based on the podcast content.
Thank you for joining us on this journey. Are you ready to help your family thrive? Let's get started. Hi, we are Britt and Drea from motherhoodalliance.com, and we are excited to welcome you to a 4-episode series with Kristen Humiston, a passionate therapist, coach, and mom of 6 who brings both clinical experience and lived experience to the work of healing. She's a licensed advanced practice social worker who is certified in brain spotting and EMDR, and her specialty is working with trauma and stress-related challenges, including PTSD, anxiety, relational problems, and spiritual wounding. She tells her story more in episode 1, but Kristen's journey started in the music world as she owned a music studio for over 20 years while homeschooling. Then, in 2019, after a season of personal and family trauma and healing, Kristen felt drawn to pursue therapy as a career. Today, she helps women and couples rediscover their worth and step into their strength with courage and clarity through her Appleton-based business, Courageous Healing Therapy. Kristen loves to learn new things, and with kids ranging from 9 to 21 years old, her most recent hobbies include being a sports mom chauffeur, pottery classes, relearning 5th grade math, and spending time with her husband. All right, it's time to invite Kristen to the mic, so let's dive in. Hi, everyone. Welcome to episode 3 with Kristen. We had 2 great episodes. If you have not listened to those yet, and if you are a parent, you need to head back and listen to those right now, because in episode 1, we talked about mama's mental health, and dads, this will apply to you too. And there's some really good tips in there about managing our everyday stressors as parents and how we can navigate being parents and all the other loads of life. In episode 2, oh my goodness, this was such a good episode. We talked about pushing our emotions and things onto our kids, or kind of like spewing them out. But in this episode, we're going to be talking about highly sensitive motherhood. And so, Kristen, you talk about HSP. Is that highly sensitive parents or person? What does that stand for?
Highly sensitive person.
Okay. And then what does that actually mean? Is this a diagnosis that we're going to be talking through, or tell us about it?
Yeah, highly sensitive persons is actually an innate trait. Something our culture is not really in favor of. And about 20% of the population is known to have this trait. It is not something that is wrong with you. It is not a disorder. It is the way that you experience the world. So let me give you an acronym to help kind of clarify what is included in highly sensitive person.
Sure.
DOES, like DOES. D is depth of processing. This is someone who tends to reflect deeply, think through things thoroughly. It would be seen in maybe the person that you bring up an issue with and they don't have an answer right away, but maybe they come back to you a week or 2 later and have really well thought out information about it. Someone also who leads with intuition, just kind of makes those gut decisions. And that's what, I just know this is right because it feels right. Oftentimes is a saying that will come from someone who is an HSP. O, overstimulation. So this can be lights, noises, crowds, chaos, a lot on the schedule. Basketball season is more actively overstimulating to me than, summertime when we're not in the middle of go, 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 go. Common, again, for moms who are juggling multiple kids, tasks, working mom, entrepreneurial mom, taking kids again to sports, things like that. And all of those things feel a little bit more difficult the more that's on the schedule, on her plate. E, emotional responsiveness or empathy. Often, again, someone who would have been told as a child, well, you're just too sensitive. You should just get over this. The person who feels someone else's pain. Some people physically feel the pain of another person. This would be someone who is most likely an HSP. S is sensing the subtle. And DOES is an acronym that comes from Elaine Aron, is one of the primary researchers. She has a great website. You're going to link it in the show notes that helps people. It has an assessment on there, lots of research as to what this is. So if people are wondering, well, this kind of sounds like me, but I'm not sure, that would be a great place to go with Elaine Aron. Sensing the subtle, again, is someone who can pick up on nuances that others miss.
When you're saying pick up on things other people's miss, I think about I am not a very observant person. When you're talking, so it's, if you're just rattling these off and I'm kind of checking my box or not checking my box for each one of these, that's kind of my gut reaction there. But when you talk about the overstimulated side, I'm like, yep, that is me. I need to turn down my car radio when the kids are in it, and I just get really overstimulated. So is this kind of you said it's only 20% of the population actually is an HSP or highly stimulated person. So is this kind of, you should be seeing all 4 of these traits to be considered highly sensitive, or is it just you could be really zoned in on 1 or 2 of them?
Great question. So for a highly sensitive person, you can just have a few things, but they're extremely true of you. Okay. And they're so extremely true of you that it's perhaps debilitating or feels like just absolutely too much. I can't function anymore. Yeah. When these things are happening. But you also may be, and you'll have highly sensitive people who may fall into and have like, yes, okay, yeah, that's me a little bit. Yeah, I see that here in this category, into all 4 areas.
Is this something that can be developed based off your season of life, or, kind of makes it's higher or lower depending on what you're in? Because I think about before we had kids, time was my own. I could be selfish with my time. I could go for walks whenever I wanted to. I could take a nap if I wanted to. Then you have kids and time is not your own anymore. There's so much more stimulation. So like, can you almost not be an HSP in one season and then become an HSP? Or is this something where it's really ingrained in you and you would see this as a child starting from the beginning?
It's ingrained. It's an innate trait. So in some way, shape, or form, it will have expressed itself even in younger years. Now, obviously, seasons of life can highlight or exacerbate areas of our temperament. Mm-hmm. And so we have to make adjustments. Depending on professions, there's a way that HSP shows up. There are doctors who are HSPs, but it's very difficult because the medical world around is overstimulating, kind of pushes in on all these areas. So the way we express ourselves, and I say I am an HSP, and I have had to learn how to buffer a little bit of my life so that because that was part of my anxiety and my stress was when I was challenging areas that really I didn't need to challenge. Goes back to, again, what we've talked about a little bit earlier on some other earlier episodes, that comparison. Because we do have to make some decisions in life if we want to live in wellness and what is, again, satisfying for us, that is going to look a little bit different than our friend, our neighbor, things like that.
Now, I'm assuming as we continue this conversation, even if somebody took the quiz, hit pause right now, took the quiz, they're not defined as an HSP, they could still benefit from some of the tips or ways that HSPs can manage. Is that right?
Absolutely, because we need someone in our life, chances are, is going to be an HSP, and understanding it a little bit better can help us interact with them and engage with them well.
Like you said, Brittany, I get overwhelmed too sometimes. Like I do have to turn down my radio. I have to, sometimes I just feel like that. And so even the tips or the strategies that an HSP person would use to set their boundaries and buffer things would benefit me too, even if I'm not considered HSP.
Well, let's start out by talking about if the person listening, the parent, is HSP and some strategies behind this. And then let's definitely spend some time talking about if we're raising HSP kids, because I know Drea and I, we both feel like we have maybe a kiddo who is on the sensitive side
for sure.
in beautiful ways, but also challenging ways as parents, and we want to empower them. So, but starting out with adults who are HSPs, I'm assuming boundaries is going to be something that's going to be beneficial. Let's start by talking about some boundaries that have helped you personally, as well as some tips for others.
Absolutely. Boundaries are going to be the HSP's new best friend if they haven't been good friends with it before. So for me, this has looked like boundaries on my schedule. I set a time every week. It's a 3-hour block. I tried to go with 2 and it was not enough. 4 is just unrealistic in my life. 3 is challenging, but that's what I need. And when I chronically, so that 3-hour time block weekly is for quiet, is for reflection, is for doing a hobby that I enjoy, is for walking, praying, like whatever. Something that's just for me to take a breath. We've talked about the pause, which is like a daily breather, but I need a weekly 3-hour time block, which when my kids were younger, I did not have. And that was part of what was my buildup and spilled over onto my kids. So you have to adjust your schedule and you have to become okay with that's just the reality. So no, I cannot meet with extra clients. No, I cannot make that appointment here. I'm gonna have to place it someplace else. And becoming really firm on your own boundaries, particularly in time, so that you can give yourself time and space.
Okay, outside of boundaries, what other tips do you have for helping an HSP manage life when they have kids and unpredictable things happening?
So this is interesting, but one tip that comes to mind, and it's kind of part tip, part exercise, and experiment. That is the tip. Experimenting to see what works and what doesn't work, but take something off your calendar that you think has to be there. Challenging what you think you have to do so that you learn, actually, I have choice.
Do you find that HSPs tend to be yes people?
Yes, and they feel they're people pleasers. They feel guilty when they don't do what somebody else wants. They can tend to want to manage everybody else's emotions, and they aren't okay if someone isn't okay because they're taking in their emotions. So it physically doesn't feel good, and they believe they should be making life better for everyone else. So they're high givers of time. They're over givers. They're over functioning oftentimes. Yeah.
Okay. So boundaries are going to be great. I think what I'm struggling with here is just understanding once somebody is able to recognize that they are an HSP or they have attributes similar, even if they're not kind of what the quiz says, the days are long, but the years are short. And so kids, they grow up fast, but they also grow up really slowly. And this is an everyday grind. This is an everyday battle to try and maintain essentially your sanity while also going through the motions and getting things done and being a parent and doing all the things that come with it. How do we do this?
It's really challenging. It's really challenging in our current culture. And I think that is one thing that we're seeing, the increase in anxiety and depression, because these can also, they tend to have higher mood disorders as a group than the average. Because they take everything in, because they are more sensitive to environment, to relational conflict and concerns. And so in our modern day, mom has to bring in money, the 2-income home. And I don't just mean mom, because dads also experience this. The way our culture is set up, it makes it very difficult to innately have that trait of being an HSP. And it feels, again, like you don't don't fit in the world. You don't belong in the space. And what's wrong? What's wrong with me?
Right. And if they don't understand who they are, that they just are highly sensitive and don't understand that, then yes, of course you're going to think there's something wrong with you, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I feel like this is such a challenge in today's world because you have a couple different sides of the spectrum. You mentioned in the beginning of this episode that sensitivity is looked at as a negative trait. But at the same time, you also have different modes of parenting, right? And so I think there are great aspects to the gentle parenting side. There's a lot of things that we can pull in and implement into everyday parenting. But if you take anything to the extreme, it can also have some challenging attributes. And so this is kind of where we got into a little bit in last episode of what are we doing within our parenting that could be traumatizing our kids, but also we have to build up resilience and all these different things. So let's talk about the highly sensitive kiddos right now. What are some signs that a child of yours might be highly sensitive? And then let's talk about finding that balance of how to raise them to be strong, even though this may be a bit more of a struggle.
Yes. So a child who is highly sensitive is going to be the one who struggles with changing in transition. So going from one activity to another can be difficult if there's not enough space. Going right from school and to dance practice. And they're always having some kind of like an attitude issue in there, even though like, what's wrong with her because, or what's wrong with him because.
You have plenty of time.
Yeah.
It's
And
fine.
they love dance. They might love dance. They might love the thing they're going to next. But if there's not a space for transition for a moment to come down from the stimulation of being at school and then go into dance. So you can kind of think, what does my child struggle? Does my child struggle with transition time from one activity to another? Does my child seem to be overly emotional or emotionally reactive that it doesn't fit the situation? They will need more time for, again, downtime, but verbal affirmation. You can see what environments are difficult for my child, or what environments do my child thrive in? Does my child thrive in? What environments does my child thrive in, and what environments does my child have more difficulty with? Watching those aspects can kind of clue you in as to if they're highly sensitive, and then gives you some information to begin building appropriate context for their world. And again, their challenge is just as the same as our challenge. Our world is not really built for highly sensitive people because we're told you're not strong enough if you can't handle this. So for both parent and child, reframing that highly sensitive aspect as it is a strength. Their strength is different. Their strength is seeing, the child who sees another child hurting. That's a highly sensitive kid. And what a beautiful strength. We need those children because they're going to befriend the person who's hurting in their class. So beginning to reframe it as not fitting and as a problem into the gift that being highly sensitive is for both parent and child is a beginning step. It's a full package. Yes, it makes it difficult, and they are who bring a lot of beauty to our world.
On that website too, we can, test ourselves. We can ask those questions for ourselves. Would that apply to our kids too?
Yes, there's so much information.
Okay, great.
Yeah, she's done incredible work around this area.
So I think as parents, I'm trying to apply how to parent these sensitive kids. Now, setting up some boundaries would probably be good. Having a little extra downtime at home would probably be good. But if you have one child who is not highly sensitive, and then you have one child who is highly sensitive, how would the parenting strategy, especially when it comes to, maybe the sensitive kiddo has more emotional outbursts or something else, how does your parenting strategy need to change when raising these kids?
I think for the whole family, teaching and practicing naming emotions making regulating emotions a normal family activity. So I have one highly sensitive kiddo, highly sensitive. He was naming his emotions on his own at 4 years old. I feel so sad when this happens. So we have normalized big hugs. I'm not a hugger. That was very challenging for me. We've normalized some fun kiddo breath work. And those that are listening to the podcast can't see me, but I'm like doing some of these
like YMCA type movements.
Yes. If there's a whole bunch of chaos going on in my home, again, I still have young ones and teenagers in the home. I'll just say, stop, wet noodle. And like we talked about in episode 1, we'll all just have loose muscles, relaxed muscle body, and like fall to the floor.
Oh, that's hilarious.
And it's laughable, especially if it's like just getting really chaotic, right? But we actually all know, and a kiddo will know after practicing that one time, man, that actually really worked.
Well, everyone can feel the tension of chaos. Like,
Yeah.
there's yelling, there's dinner
Yeah.
cooking, everything's crazy. And if you just like, stop, poof, relax, okay, reset.
And I think it's so beneficial for the one who's not sensitive to become aware of what life is like and the world is like for the sensitive one, because that builds their empathy. And that compassion and empathy are the things that are missing in the workplace by the time we're adults. And so what better way to say to all members of the family, we all have value, regardless of our personality build and our innate traits, and what are the strengths that each one of us bring. And the strengths of the non-highly sensitive is a little bit more, well, let's get this done. Decision-making without the delay. So learning to appreciate and utilize, even, kid-friendly, the strengths of each of them. And so it also is that highly sensitive person, saying to that child, hey, I understand this is really hard right now. Next time, we'll put a little space between this activity, or we'll come back and think about this commitment next time. Right now, we're doing this. And allowing the other non-sensitive child to come in and say, what do you think we should do to problem solve here? While this one's calming down, while you're hugging this one, then the non-sensitive can come in too and not feel like they're left out of whatever's going on over here with the hugging, so that both are appreciated and both are utilized in that process.
Yeah,
this is beautiful.
Such a good topic. And like Drea, I'm sure everybody here who's listening can think of somebody who they think is highly sensitive, right? And just having some encouragement that there's different ways that we can help support them is so great. Do you work with kiddos, Kristen?
I do not. I start about 16 plus.
Okay, but you could work with the parents to help them
Absolutely.
with parenting strategies.
Absolutely.
Great. Well, we do have your social media and your website linked in the show notes. Do you offer any sort of a free call if a parent wants to call and just talk through things with you and figure out if you're a good fit for them?
Yep. Anytime, 10 to 15 minute free consultation, people can get a hold of me and we'll set that up.
Great. I love these topics that you've picked because they're just so relatable for so many people. And our next and our final episode together, we're going to be diving in a little bit more into the science-y on a specific topic. I know myself, I've heard about brain spotting and EMDR therapy, and I just don't know much about it. So I'm excited to pick your brain and learn more and also hear about how you use it in therapy to help people and many, many different types of journeys. If you enjoyed this episode, would you consider leaving a rating or review or sharing it directly with a friend who could benefit from the information? We know that you're a busy mom or caregiver, and our goal is to make your life easier by bringing tips and tricks directly from experts into your earbuds. By sharing this episode with someone you love, you can play a critical role in helping to make their life easier as well. We appreciate your time and thank you for being a part of the Motherhood Alliance family.